Okay, we're live.
Good morning, صباح الخير, good afternoon, good evening, Dr. Kinakawa.
こんにちは、こんばんは。ようこそ。
Dr. Nanea, or soon to be. You're muted.
So sorry. Tuitaiwai. Good morning, good day, everyone.
Mahdar and Cloud Sky.
ሰላም እንዴት ናችሁ? እንዴት ዋላችሁ?
Cloudy Sky.
Hola, mi nombre es Claudia Sky.
Dr. Meari.
مساء الخير جميعا وكلنا أمل إنه يكون خير فعلا وعدل وحرية للجميع.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Rabab Abdelhadi, and I'm from San Francisco State University. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Kinakawa.
Thank you so much. Welcome everyone to our Ahmed Open Classroom titled People's University for Gaza, Palestine, Genocide, Resistance, and Repression. Before we start, everyone, please tell us in the chat your name if you feel comfortable sharing, where you're joining from, and also what you do and why you are here. We'd like to start with land acknowledgements. I begin by acknowledging that our university campus, San Francisco State University, occupies the stolen unceded indigenous land of Lamaites Ohlone peoples who continue to live on this land and experience continued acts of displacement. The students and faculty at university benefit from the occupation of the land, and we have a responsibility to bring this experience into our discussions on imperialism and occupation and their commitment to defeat the settler colonial project in the US. Dr. Abdelhadi.
I make this acknowledgement as an indigenous Palestinian Arab Muslim woman of color, feminist and activist, whose land is colonized by Israeli settler colonialism, and where it is essential for anyone who comes to visit or live to express solidarity and as comrades in arms on the indigenous land of Palestine, all of Palestine, to not only acknowledge whose land it is, but that no matter how short or long they stay, and no matter how good or noble their intentions are, their presence must be validated by the indigenous people of the land if they do not wish to be defined as settlers. Dr. Kinakawa.
Thank you. Dr.
I'm going to do that. Yes, we were going to have Nadil do that, and so we would like to salute and honor the fallen, and stop for a moment of silence to honor all the martyrs who have fallen in Gaza, the streets of the United States, South Africa, Lebanon, Puerto Rico, Vietnam, Cuba, Kashmir, East of Africa, Congo, Yemen, Syria, Iraq, and anywhere and everywhere around the world for our people's struggle. The martyrs who continue to fall day in and day out, we honor them and remember those who have fallen recently and those who passed for a very long time ago. And please take a moment to think about them and remember all the ancestors who have passed and who still live among us. Dr. Kinakawa.
Next, I'd like to express our deep gratitude to all of those who made this open classroom possible. First, we'd like to thank our co-sponsors, Feminists for Justice in and for Palestine, Teaching Palestine, Ahmed Studies, Women and Gender Studies Department at San Francisco State University, NSJP, National Student for Justice in Palestine, NWSA, National Women Studies Association, Rights to Education, Westchester Coalition, Jewish Voice for Peace Westchester, Quit Queers Undermining Israeli Terrorism, LCSPR, Faculty for Justice in Palestine, UC Santa Cruz, Feminist Solidarity Network for Palestine, Nikkei Decolonization Tour, Jews Against White Supremacy, UCSC, Lower Hudson Valley Democratic Socialists of America. And those of you who just co-sponsored more recently will add yours in our flyer. And we'd also like to thank all of the individuals without whose efforts this event would not have been possible. The original art of the flyer is by the talented Lebanese Brazilian cartoonist Carlos Latouf. The flyer was designed by Ahmed Minor students who are joining us from the encampment. That's, if I may, Cecilia, Melanie, and Gracie. We also like to thank Saleh Abel-Muti from Gaza for compiling student and children videos from Palestine. And also we'd like to thank Lynn Asari for editing and producing those videos. Also, we received assistance with social media by Leith Gurom, Lynn Asari, and Mohammed Abnasar. Tech support is offered by Leith Gurom and Lynn Asari. There has been a coordination and substantive work around the clock that has been offered by Sundos Hamad, Director of Rights to Education Campaign at Birzeit University. So thank you. Today there are our classes are joining, and two sections of my classes, Women and Gender Studies 150, Women and Gender in U.S. History and Society. Also, three classes of Dr. Abdulhadi, classes on Islamophobia, Palestine, and Comparative Border Studies, Palestine and Mexico. We'd like to ask our colleagues, please share in the chat which of your classes are joining, and watching this open classroom now or if you're planning your classes to watch it later, please do let us know in the chat. Also, today we have honor that this open classroom is broadcasted on multiple encampments across U.S. and those include UC Santa Cruz, Syracuse University, Colorado University, San Francisco State University, Columbia University, Harvard University, and CUNY. So Dr. Abdulhadi.
Unmuting myself. So we wanted to just share with you, and by the way, we're being joined by more campuses. As they join us, we will announce that. I'm just trying to see who do we have online. Okay, yeah. Oh, hi, Hadil. You're with us. Can you please introduce yourself and say where you're coming from, where you're joining us from?
Sure. LA. I'm the co-founder of Westchester for Palestine, and really happy to join you. Been participating in a lot of the uprising in New York with the students, supporting them from the outside. Thank you all. Thank you, Professor Rabab.
Thank you all. Can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah, and unmuted. I wanted to just take a few moments to just say why this classroom, how did we come about, and where we're at. Of course, the first motivation for us coming together is the genocide that's ongoing in Gaza and the fall of over 35,000 people. We know that 10,000 people at least are under the rubble. We know that thousands and thousands of close to 100,000 people have been injured. Gaza University schools have been destroyed, buildings have been destroyed, hospitals have been destroyed, cultural institutions that go hundreds of years back have been destroyed. Gaza people do not have enough food, do not have enough water. In some places they have to drink sewage water because there is no water. The humanitarian aid is being blocked, and this is very much part and parcel, and we acknowledge that from the United States, that this is part and parcel of the US-Israeli alliance in conducting a genocide in Gaza. We also acknowledge that there is a heroic steadfastness, resilience, and resistance by the Palestinian people who refuse to give up, who insist on continuing to struggle to demand the right to self-determination, the right to freedom, the right to liberation, the right of return, and the right to end all sorts of form of racism, colonialism, and continue to struggle against the Zionist settler colonial project in Palestine. In the midst of all of these horrible actions and resistance that is going on, we also found that students and faculty and many people in the United States, in the streets of the United States, have risen up and around the world to express solidarity and support and say that what happens to Palestine is something that affects all of us, out of justice, out of solidarity with everybody, after coming together, and in order for us to support and work with each other. And most importantly, and we will discuss that a little bit more also as we go along, the qualitative shift in the discourse, in the actions, in the strategies, in the tactics of everybody who is participating today, that is very different than anything we have seen in the past. Some are similar, about the question of Vietnam and what happened against the war in Vietnam, the Black Power movement, the struggle for indigenous reclamation of the land, the struggle against anti-Blackness, anti-Asian violence, the struggle for Puerto Rican independence, for the struggle against capitalism, neoliberalism, and colonialism. There are a lot of similarities, there are a lot of differences, which we would like to discuss. In the midst of it, campuses have risen up and students have built multiple encampments that we can't even keep track of. As we speak, every single day we hear more and more and more. And we are really honored to have so many students and scholars who are joining us from different places to report on what's going on. The response has been really vicious, and the repression is paramount, and it has happened even faster than we have seen in previous protests. So we will want to speak about that as well. In addition to that, we also want to speak about what's happening with Dr. Kinakawa and myself in the arbitration that we have just concluded, second session of arbitration in our complaint against San Francisco State University, the grievances that we launched and that we've won unanimously by our colleagues, but the university president has vetoed. So we went to arbitration in order for us to claim our rights. So we will be speaking to you about that, sharing more and answering questions. And in the midst of it also, the latest insult that San Francisco State has directed to us, canceling the only Palestine course in the midst of the Gaza genocide, where students are really interested in learning. We have no answers why that is the case. The university claims that it is part of budget, and sometimes they claim it, even though we know summer classes are funded actually by tuition. Sometimes they say that it is about scheduling and so on, but we will explain why we think this is the case. Finally, we want to discuss more about the whole question of the Open University for Gaza, Palestine, We want to talk much, much more about student encampment. We want to talk about new McCarthyism, and we want to talk about what is else we want to do. But we now, before we continue, we are honored by being joined by Dr. Ghassan Abu Sitta, who has been working amazingly and heroically from Gaza and reporting on day in and day out, and has been honored to become director of Glasgow University. And we know that Dr. Ghassan Abu Sitta, as rector of Glasgow University, is not, I dare say and predict, is not going to be like other university presidents. But I'm going to just turn to you, Dr. Ghassan, just to introduce yourself, a couple of words, and then we are going to begin with the discussion. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. And I'm so sorry for the delay. The events of Saturday have kind of taken their toll. As you might know, on Saturday I was supposed to be speaking at the French Senate, and I was held until the end of the day in a holding cell in Charles de Gaulle Airport, and then deported back based on a ban that the German government had placed on my entry to the whole of the Schengen area. Countries and Schengen area is EU plus EU affiliates, so EU plus Switzerland plus Norway. And so it's just been a bit hectic as a result of the discovery of that ban, because the Germans had used an administrative rule to ban my entry into Europe, and so things have just been a bit more hectic, and I am a bit more tired than before, because that day took its toll. I was surprised that when I got there, I was taken to a holding cell and kept there for the rest of that day. So please accept my apologies for my lateness.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abu Sitta. We want to talk more about this, about the whole question of blocking people from going to different places. And you are just saying you're calling it an inconvenience, and we know how hard it is for many of us who've also been stopped at borders, what's going on, and we know what's happening in Palestine as well. So we would like to talk about that some more. We are particularly honored that you are joining us, and we're going to give you a minute to kind of catch your breath and sit back, and we are going to go into some of the reporting that has been going on from various places, and we will come back to the discussion. So I am wondering if we could start with either Hadil or Sundus, if you can report to us of what's going on university campuses, on some of the university campuses that you're aware of. Maybe we should start with Hadil, start from the US and go to Palestine, travel back and forth. So why don't you, Hadil, give us some of the experiences that you are aware of in the area you're at, in the New York area and the East Coast, and universities that you are in contact with?
Sure. So it's been really busy 3 weeks with all of these action that's happening. So just for location, I'm in Westchester County, which is right next to the city of New York. In New York, there has been about 5 schools so far. We have Columbia, of course, you all heard about it, City College of New York, which is part of the CUNY system, the New School, NYU, and they have done really, really strong work. But then last week, they managed to sweep their encampment in City College and in Columbia, and that was such a hard loss. And we watched it. It was really brutal way of working with the students. Now it's not clear how these schools going to move forward. NYU have been swept, and they managed to return a couple of times, and which is really, really great. And they have been, like, the whole city is really supportive. We have been having protests outside the school constantly, dividing it into shifts to make sure the community is, providing as much support and protection throughout the clock for the past 3 weeks. Most currently now in Westchester, which is more suburban area next to the city, we had Purchase College, which is part of the SUNY system here in New York. It's a large college, and the student, comparing to the city, they're smaller group, but they managed to also establish their encampment last Thursday. They were swept first night very brutally by the police, and they even invited more than one department of police for them, since the county is having more than one department. And the student held strong. They reestablished it on Friday. They swept them again this weekend, but they're still going, and they have met with they're trying to negotiate now with their president, and things seems positive in a way that the president met with them on ground and tried to discuss what's their demand and whatnot. Definitely Westchester now mobilizing to support them. And we're hoping tomorrow we can show up at the doors of the college to protest the administration and the way that the police, they sent the police to treat the student in that way and brutally moving them from their own campus. That's what
and Hadil also, it was also the New York state troopers that also participated. It wasn't just local police, and some of the students ended up in the hospital. Maybe can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, there was 3 students who got injured, more than one student who lost their medication, one for asthma, one for heart, and they were hospitalized. We mobilized to provide jail support for them. The next day we've been in communication, and mentally they were not doing well. They were really scared. So yeah, as you said, it's the city troopers, and there was some devices the next time they tried to sweep them, which is this weekend. There was some devices that the police threatened them with. They didn't really use it, but threatened them. So even the administration, the president of the college, when she made the announcement, she went to all of the group repeating the same thing. And one student was suspended as of now, but she announced, she announced the decision as you might all be suspended. So the suspension is still part of the equation, that some student might still be under that decision. But for now, we know of one student that have been suspended from purchase. Alumni are very supportive, and the faculty as well, been trying to work things and supporting the students on the ground, but also in communication with the president. We're hoping today or tomorrow we're going to have some good news from them.
And we also heard that people in the community actually went and took the students to their homes and took care of them and gave them food and support. So
100%, because that's also purchase have, a lot of the student dorming inside. So they prevented the student from going back to their dorm the same night, saying, if you came back to the campus, we're gonna, add to your charges. So a lot of students couldn't go back. So we hosted them in different community houses, and yeah, we tried to be there for them because they're really courageous. The city did amazing, but we also have an extra appreciation for purchase students, because they, just for the way the dynamics in the area, it's very large Zionist community here, and usually the community does not mobilize in the strength that the city does. So for them to take that step on, with all of the risks for their education and legally, it was such a brave process from them. So we're with them till the end.
I'm just hesitating to ask you the next question, or to hold off on it, because I do know that other of our guests, Naneya and Mahdar and Cloudy Sky, will actually speak about what's going on at various universities and the repression that's going on. But if I was wondering if you could also speak about what's happening in the streets, about the whole rising of the Israeli flags on various government buildings and the attacks that people have been subjected to at the community.
Here we have in Westchester a couple of city halls who have the Israeli flag raised. New Rochelle was one of them, Rockland as well. And a lot of the community members tried to protest it. New Rochelle succeeded in protesting the flag and they put it down. Rockland, not really. There was not even a pathway to do that. Different protests that we went, like 2 weeks ago, we went for Irvington's when Biden was visiting, and we had, of course, counter protesters. And once we also went to the sales of Palestinian lands by Keller Williams, and there we have a huge counter protesters, which we expected. But currently is the narrative of outside agitators and the fear that the schools may face Zionist agitator from outside, beyond the police, who can shape a threat for them. So far, that did not happen in Purchase. There's just no attack from Zionists outside of the campus or inside of the campus. But this is always a fear because of considering the dynamic of Westchester. And we're expecting, if things maybe lasted longer and they felt like the student is actually establishing a strong pressure, that might happen. So this is like something in like a plan B kind of thing in the background happening. So the students are prepared, because we've seen awful things happening in other colleges, which I will let other people speak on more.
Thank you, Hadil. Of course, we're going to ask you to come back again and say, and there is one more thing that has happened in Chappaqua, which is the hometown of Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. Hillary Clinton has been spreading lies about Palestinian treatment of the Israeli captives in Gaza. And in their own area in Chappaqua, actually, they banned Palestinians going to speak at schools. So that also has been going on. And we want to actually continue talking about sort of like the dialectic between repression and resistance, and how people coming together and organizing how bad things are. But if you don't mind, I would like for us to move on to other guests. And I do know that Naneya and Mahdar and Cloudy Sky, and I'm sure a lot of other students who are joining us from various campuses, and they probably are going to be posting in the chat. We just can't keep up with all of it. We'll speak about what's going on and what's happening. We do know at UCLA that there were Israeli soldiers actually that attacked the students, and instead of being protected, the students were shot at by the LAPD, Los Angeles Police Department, which is known for its violence against communities of color, against all people. But we will move on to that, and I would like maybe to pass it on to Sundus to tell us about the various what's happening with the universities and students in Palestine.
So, hello everyone. First of all, it's an honor to be with you all today in this panel. And when you speak about the level of repression and oppression that is happening on the US campuses towards these protesters, these brave students, it reminds us of what's happening, what is usually happening in our campuses in Palestine from the occupation, where student movement is criminalized by the Israeli occupation by law, and students who are affiliated to student blocs are being imprisoned because their affiliations and being charged for years and or under administrative detention. Today at Birzeit University alone, we have more than 150 students who are imprisoned in the Israeli jails. Since the 7th of October, since the start of this genocidal war, we have witnessed or documented more than 70 of our students who got arrested from the Israeli occupation. Among them are still captive, like four female students and 4 academics and 1 employee. This also what we are watching regarding how these encampments in the U.S. campuses being attacked and raided reminds us of the raids on our campuses. So, for example, Birzeit University has been raided for 21 times in the past 20 years. And again, it's like a collective punishment being targeted and being opposed on us as Palestinians. and to whoever is also pro-Palestinian or in the side of justice for Palestine. And this brings me to what the students are trying to do in different campuses, not only in Birzeit University. In the past week, we worked together with the student movement from other universities in the West Bank, in Gaza, as well from the 48 occupied land, where we worked together on a video just to send a message to the student encampments. Okay.
Thank you, Sundus, and thank you for all your work and the collaboration. It's been really. I mean, are you okay?
Yes.
You okay? We lost you. Okay, you'll be back. You'll be back. Yeah, we will be back to you. But we wanted to also. Are we able to show the video now that we were actually so fortunate to be compiled and sent by the International Commission in Support of Palestinian Rights from Gaza, from our colleague Salah Abdel Mati. So I was wondering, Lynn, if you can. Is it possible to show it now? Okay. There is no sound. Lynn, if there are technical difficulties, we can move on. And is that okay?
Yeah. I'll try to fix it. So we'll move on and we'll come back to it.
So next we would like to hear from you, Dr. Ghassan, about what is it that you've seen in Gaza. We've seen you a lot on TV. We've seen you on X, on Instagram, making one appeal after another. I know you are again in Glasgow back now. Can you just share with us why is this so outrageous, and why is it that it does require this kind of response? And I know you can speak about it all, whatever, maybe brief discussion of what's going on.
I think one of the things that I came to very quickly realize when I left Gaza, because when you're inside Gaza, especially at the time that I was there, before the first ceasefire, before any of the medical teams was allowed in, when you come out of Gaza, you realize that Israel is only the tip of the genocidal iceberg. And the rest of the genocidal iceberg is made up of the axis of genocide, the countries that have increased their weapons delivery and ammunition delivery tenfold to Israel, countries that have protected the genocidal project, not just protected Israel, but protected the genocidal project from being impeded or slowed down by the ICJ or by the UN Security Council or by local parliaments or national parliament. And these are the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Canada, Australia, the countries of the NATO pact. And I also discovered that part of this genocidal iceberg are genocide enablers, and these are individuals and institutions that have ensured that their job is to silence the witnesses, to silence those standing up for Palestinians, for the victims, and against the continuation of the genocide. And we see them at work. We see the system that had been built over 75 years that gave the Israelis the sense of impunity to the point that on the 8th of October, And until now, they verbalize their genocidal intent. They verbalize their ethnic cleansing intents, and they and everyone from the president to Netanyahu, to the head of the army, to individual members of parliament, to media personalities, and to the soldier on the ground who insists on videotaping his latest war crime on TikTok. It's that impunity that has created the sense of untouchability, that system of enablers that exists in countries and individuals and institutions, that created the sense of ability and impunity amongst Israelis, both politicians and citizens, that allows them to continue. And they are right. Nobody thought that the genocidal war would be allowed to continue for 7 months, but it has. Nobody thought that in the 21st century, where people are watching genocide live on their phones, on their TVs, unfold, nobody imagined that the Western media, whose job it was to silence Palestinians, now is engaged in a process where it silences Israelis to ensure that they don't incriminate themselves. So when over 100 Israeli doctors signed a petition calling on the Israeli army to bomb Shifa Hospital, it was never reported in any of the Western media. When Israeli soldiers continuously post on TikTok and on Instagram videos incriminating themselves committing war crime, it's not reported. And when in the UK, when Palestinian doctors who are members of royal colleges, and in the UK, the Royal Colleges of Surgeons, the Royal Colleges of Physicians, or individual university and university alumni, when they're killed, the best that you can hope for from these institutions that these Palestinian doctors belong to is a brief description of the fact that they mourn the death of Dr. Maqadme. The Royal Surgeons mourned the death of Dr. Maqadme, who was executed with his mother by the Israelis in Shifa Hospital, as if Dr. Maqadme died of a congenital heart disease or a tumor or an infectious disease, rather than being executed in a hospital, which is now a major mass grave. And so that iceberg, that genocidal iceberg, really constitutes I discovered after I came out of Gaza, and what I ran into on Saturday when I was stopped from going into France, only to discover that the German state had put an administrative ban on me entering any Schengen area country, with the aim of putting pressure on the International Criminal Court, because so that I can never reach The Hague, Holland, because I have a visa ban to enter Holland as part of the Schengen area. And so whatever the previous speakers described happening on campuses in the United States, this is all part of that genocidal iceberg. And these individuals and these institutions and these governments are as guilty of the genocide as the Israeli government. These politicians that attack the students are no different than Ben Gvir or any of the other Israeli ministers who advocate the wiping out of the Palestinians. But the job of these individuals is to protect the genocide and to allow it to continue unhindered.
Thank you, Doctor. I know it's really hard because we all saw you on various TVs and various stations speaking about it. So I'm going to maybe pass on to Dr. Meari now and speak about what's happening in the West Bank, what's happening in Jerusalem, what's happening in the 48 areas, because a lot of people only think that this is only happening in Gaza. Dr. Meari.
Okay, thank you, Rabab. Thank you, everyone here. Just allow me, but because that's what I'm trying to do always, by beginning by honoring my Palestinian people all over the geography of colonized Palestine. My people who are still facing, at these moments, one of the most horrific operations of genocide and ethnic cleansing by the settler colonial Zionist state, and killing to date about 35,000 Palestinians, including 14,000 children, destroying housing units, schools, universities, hospitals, bakeries, mosques, churches, and workplaces, and detaining and torturing about 11,000 Palestinians. One of them who was executed under torture, Dr. Adnan al-Barsh, 2 days ago. And again, I also believe that it is our duty to record the atrocities against our people, but not as victims, but as the people who will survive and will resist. I would like first, Rabab, if you allow me, just to reflect on what's going on the campuses all over the world. And I want to begin with a quote from Aimé Césaire's piece written in 1955, titled Discourse on Colonialism, in which Césaire writes, "A civilization that uses its principles for trickery and deceit is a dying civilization. The fact is that the so-called Western civilization, as it has been shaped by 2 centuries of bourgeois rule, is incapable of solving the 2 major problems to which its existence has given rise: the problem of the proletariat and the colonial problem. That Europe is unable to justify itself either before the bar of reason or before the bar of conscience, and that increasingly it takes refuge in the hypocrisy, which is all the more odious because it is less and less likely to deceive." End of quote. So I think that students in Palestine, but also students at university campuses around the world, declare that they could no longer be deceived, and that the atrocities of colonialism, capitalism, imperialism, and genocidal wars could no longer be justified in their names. And I think that the phrase "Gaza liberated us," heard by so many around the world, is informing. It means that the blood of more than 35,000 Gazans, the bombed bodies of Palestinian children, women, and men, and the tortured bodies of Palestinian captives, not only revealed to them the true ugly face of Zionism as an eliminatory settler colonial machine that the indigenous people of Palestine encountered since the late 19th century, but also this exposed the true face of the oppressive nature of their own regimes and the imperial racist policies promoted by the elites that, in contrast to the discourses of humanity and democracy they utter, it lie an extractive capitalist imperial interests gaining its surplus from the capitalized blood of the colonized. So this is true of the case of the Palestinians, but it was also true for more than 1.6 million Iraqis who died as a result of disease following the blockade imposed on Iraq between 1990 to 2003. and which Madeleine Albright, when she was asked about 500,000 Iraqi children who died, which is more children than those who died in Hiroshima, she answered, I think that it is a very difficult choice, but we believe that the price is worth it. So while atrocities in this modern world are many, this time we can stop it from continuing by a radical solidarity based on no one is free unless everyone is free. Yet we need to restore the meaning of radical freedom away from the imaginary liberal conception of freedom in the sense of freedom of choice and freedom of contract existing in a capitalist world in which the minority owns and monopolizes the world's wealth. And in this war had become the basis of, in this world, war had become the basis of accumulation. So through our solidarity, we can change the unlivable world we are in today into a humane world for all. So our solidarity also honors all those colonized, enslaved, displaced by colonial powers in the past and today. And we, of course, know that this solidarity of the oppressed, of the exploited, of revolutionary students, and of organic intellectuals will face very harsh repressive techniques to keep the interests of those in power. And we need to continue in a united struggle. So these oppressive techniques we had experienced here, and I want to just highlight what students, Palestinian students in Israeli universities and faculty are facing. Since the 7th of October, hundreds of Palestinians had been arrested and imprisoned for writing posts on Facebook or Instagram. Faculty members like Dr. Nadira Shalhoub, who talked about the genocide, had been arrested, and also she's now under interrogation for the academic articles she wrote during her academic career. All of this repression, people in the 1948 areas of Palestine, they feel that they are living under military regime. They are not allowed to talk. They are not allowed to express solidarity with their Palestinian people. They are not allowed to say anything about the genocide now in Gaza. So these repressive techniques are felt all over colonized Palestine. And I think that my colleague Sundos had also talked about what students at Palestinian universities, including my university, Birzeit University, are facing. Students, like the colonizers had criminalized all forms of activism at universities. Today, if you are a student activist at a Palestinian university, you will be charged and arrested, tortured, and imprisoned. So these are some of what we are facing today in this genocidal war.
Thank you, Dr. Maari. It's always a pleasure to engage in intellectual conversations that are very much tied up to the real world, and explain why is it that our knowledge, the knowledge we're producing, is necessary in order to put it in the service of justice and freedom for all. I want to actually now want to go to Mahdar. And maybe you can just first share with us about Syracuse University, and then Cloudy Sky. You can tell us about the encampment. Then we will go to Nanea to speak about Columbia and what's happening at Columbia University, and then we will have Dr. Kinakawa speak about what's going on at San Francisco State. So how about Mahdar? Go, please.
Thank you, Professor Rabab, and thank you everyone who is here. I think we're very honored to be on this call, to be learning from you all and sharing this space. I do want to start by saying Syracuse University is also rests on stolen land. We are on the land of the Onondaga Nation, particularly the Haudenosaunee firekeepers. So I want to start off with that. And what's been happening right now, we've been 7 days strong in the encampment. It has to be one of the most peaceful encampments that we've had across the nation. That does not mean that the tensions on the ground among university students is not tense, because we're watching what's happening. And so we've been preparing for different basically anything that could happen. But I want to start off like what's been happening at Syracuse University since October, because I know Dr. Rabab, we wanted to have Dr. Rabab a few days after October 7th happened. We reached out to her so that she could come and give like kind of a teaching session on people, because the narrative was already so impacted by imperial forces. And so that event was organized by the African Graduate Students Network and the Black Graduate Students Union, two of the Black grad organizations on campus. And it was also in relation to Africa Initiative, which is an initiative under the African American Studies Department. That event was canceled by the administration, and they said they would follow up, and they still have not. And it was also promoted on campus as if it was shut down for issues of safety, but in reality it was not. It was really to silence any conversations about Palestine and recover the narrative. And so since then, there's been a lot of efforts. An FJP has formed on our campus. I think anything related to Palestine they've been able to do, but just after the Dr. Abdul Hadi's cancellation, the WGS department also on campus put out a statement in solidarity with Palestinians that were under genocide, and that was also pushed back in different vague emails where the administration kept warning that departments shouldn't be influencing students' thinking. After that, I am a political science graduate student. Departments like mine have really reproduced the narrative coming from the State Department and have really had biased speakers and panelists to discuss what they're calling the Israeli-Palestine conflict instead of Palestinian genocide. And so we are on a campus where there is a heavy Zionist lobby. We are aware of that. It's historically been a stronghold. And so we came together. This is a group of grads, undergrads, and a lot of faculty support, those from FJP, those who are not related but are supporting us, faculty that are Black and Brown. And so with their support, it's a coalition of different students and different groups that came together to start the encampment. And yeah, I think I can go over perhaps some of the demands, and I can have Cloudy like fill in other things that I might have missed. So essentially, we're requesting, where the administration is actually at this point refusing to meet with us to even engage in our demands, and they're trying to use this peaceful nature as a means to kind of basically use it for their own purposes of they're allowing us to be on this quad space. I think yesterday we had a Zionist parent who was here and who was, using obscenities and cursing at us, and he was arrested. So I think we might be the only campus that has had Zionists arrested instead of the opposite. But essentially, they haven't engaged any of our demands. We have 5 demands that we've listed in actionable item ways, but generally our demands are to support a ceasefire, to have ethical investments, and that means kind of being transparent about the university's relations to Lockheed Martin and Boeing, which is evident and anyone can find online, but we also want them to disclose the bonds that they're investing in and how deep their relationship goes. We're also demanding for ethical collaborations and honorings. I don't know if folks know, but the lawyer that was supposed to be presenting on behalf of Israel at the International Criminal Court when South Africa took Israel to court it has been given an honorary degree from Syracuse University. So we're asking for things like that to be revoked. But ethical collaborations also includes all the internship programs they have in Israel, all the relations they have with universities in Israel. Demand 4 is really a protection of student rights. This is because we've seen when students have tried to do protests since October 7th, there's been a way to basically putting out vague statements that is being used to put fear in students' minds, putting out statements like we are in touch with the FBI. Actually, some of our students have also been approached by the FBI organizers who are pro-Palestinian. And so we are saying we want protection of students' rights. We want basically our academic freedom to be protected as well. And that's demand 5. Basically, they're not teaching anything that teaches students about settler colonialism, about the realities of Palestinians under occupation, none of this. And so we are demanding protection of academic freedom so that our university can engage with the reality of what is happening in the region and teach it to students in a way that does not dehumanize and debase Palestinians. Last but not least, we are calling for an addressing of DPS racism. DPS is the police, the campus safety we have on our campus. And basically what they have been doing, like they've shown us yesterday, is that it took them so long to even intervene and arrest this heckler because our students were not doing anything. We were just standing and taping as a bunch of different parents and students claiming that they were Jewish came and started screaming and shouting at us and calling us many different obscene words and using racialized insults. And campus safety was really just standing and watching them for the longest time until they realized it might get into physical altercation, and they decided to remove some of them. And so we're really facing like what is a threat and who is considered under threat, and who is considered a threat is really being weaponized by the regime, where non-white students are being pro-Palestinian students are being labeled as threats, whereas the alternative is white students and students that claim to be Jewish and claim to use that identity are being supported, and statements are being put out in their support. And I'll stop there and I'll let Cloudy add to the details about how the encampment is going.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you, actually, Cloudy Sky, were you there when there was the big campaign about what is it not right SU, the hashtag? Were you already? You weren't there. Okay.
I was not there when that happened. I came the year after, but I know a lot about what happened, and I organized right after that happened. There's actually a class that came out of that, which is called FYS, First Year Seminar, and I actually was in the room when they were creating that class in response to Not Again SU.
The reason I'm asking is because I actually came to Syracuse to speak at that time, and we know about Maxwell School, which also graduates like other places, people who end up working for the U.S. government, State Department, Pentagon, CIA, and so on and so forth. But also Syracuse is known for one professor who ended up being the executive director of the Academic Engagement Network, which is now the academic body that has been targeting Palestinian scholars, Palestinian students, universities, in order to kind of shut down any speech, criminalize Palestine, and also equate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. I was just wondering if you could hold up for a minute, Cloudy Sky. I don't know, Lean, if we are able to show that video now. Or should we go on with Cloudy Sky while you get it ready?
Yes, you mean the video of Gaza children?
No, Netanyahu.
Okay, yes, I'll get it ready.
Okay, so go. So should we go with the Cloudy Sky while you get it ready?
I can display it now.
Okay, go ahead, please. So hold off Cloudy Sky. I think it's very relevant, especially given all the accusations of anti-Semitism and terrorism that's going on. And meanwhile, while you're getting it ready for people in the audience, please tell us if you have encampments. Please respond. Please say where you are, what you are doing. If you have any questions, we do know that there are some people who are spreading hate speech on this chat and so on. We actually decided to leave it on because their words speak for themselves. So go ahead, yeah. It's no sound. There is no sound, Lean.
Sorry about that. I don't know what's it. Maybe as I figure it out, we can continue with the next speaker.
That's fine. Okay, so Cloudy Sky, please go ahead.
Hello. So mainly in the encampment right now, what we've been doing while we're there is doing a lot of teach-ins, talking about Sudan, talking about the militarization on this campus and how certain programs are being defunded. We've been talking about the connections with that Syracuse University has with the Zionist lobby, and particularly the man who came yesterday to attack our camp. He's like deeply entrenched into that Zionist lobby. He runs a PR agency. He came to our encampment and loudly claimed to be Zionist. Also, we wanted to just share that in our encampment, we've received a lot of community support. That was shown at a community rally that we had. I believe that was yesterday or the day before. We had a community rally about 5 minutes away from our campus, and a lot of people showed up. We have the Syracuse Peace Council, we have the FJP that came, our Jewish Voices for Peace came. We have a lot of mosque and restaurants and community members that are supporting us, as I've said. And yeah, we've mainly just been trying to raise consciousness, talk to one another, teach one another. As we haven't really been able to do much with admin, they haven't been communicating with us. They've been quite like playing this Mr. Nice Guy, but they're definitely threatening us. Yeah, so we're just gauging the situation. That's what we've been doing in the encampment. We did receive an email today that is basically telling us that they want us to leave, that they're saying that our physical presence needs to be gone by commencement. I'm also a senior who's graduating. Commencement's the 11th and the 12th. They're saying that they told us at the end of one of our meetings that we had to leave, we were told that we had to leave soon, but that was not told to us. That's a lie. We sent meeting minutes back to them. They sent corrected meeting minutes back to us. They're injecting lies into those meeting minutes. They're injecting lies into our email communication. They're coming up to students and speaking to them without emailing through our formal communication, which is the email channel. They're just doing tactics to intimidate and threaten us, and they're blatantly lying to us when that wasn't said to us at all. So that's the situation of what's happening on the encampment now, and we're just trying to be as strategic as possible, but also get our demands met. So that's the state of what's happening at the encampment.
Thank you, Claudia. So we're going to come back to you because it's very interesting, the whole question of commencement and what's going on with why the universities are so eager to try to figure out, to kind of like work it out before commencement. We have memories from San Francisco State from 2016, which we can share a bit later. So I would like to pass it on to Nanea to speak about Colombia, the whole question of your past. You were there in 2016 at San Francisco State too, and 2017. So please tell us first about what's going on at Colombia and what's happening with the students. And if you can also segue to what was your experience at San Francisco State as an MA student. So go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Rabab, for inviting me. It's really an honor to be talking with all of you gathered here today. So my name is Nanea. I'm a graduate student here at Columbia in the religion department. And what's been happening here, basically on August 18th, I believe it was, a coalition of students who call themselves Columbia University Apartheid Divest, CUAD, put together an encampment on the lawn in front of our main sort of quad area in front of Butler Library. And this was in response to months of protests led primarily by Students for Justice in Palestine and also Jewish Voices for Peace, both on-campus groups with collaboration from other student groups. Both of those groups were suspended. I believe it was last November. I'm not certain of the date. They were suspended without really much explanation for violating a now familiar administrative loophole, I guess, that I'm familiar with from San Francisco State called the time, place, and manner restrictions. They're called something else here. I forget the term, but essentially they were not protesting in the right way, according to university admin. So admin suspended those two groups who had been collaborating across campus to work towards divestment of the university from Israeli occupation, and in particular from the genocide in Gaza. So folks, I think, felt as though they had exhausted their sort of administrative channels and were left with little other choice than to escalate. The camp lasted for, I'm not even sure how many days, about a week and a half, I would say, with near constant threats of eviction almost every day. We would get some form of notice from the administration saying that if you don't vacate by, midnight tonight, then, you'll be evicted, and so on. And the undergraduates in particular were, I'm so just impressed by their organizing. They were able to, on multiple occasions, turn out thousands of members of the student body. I think the largest gathering was about 2,000 people between 11 p.m. and midnight on one of the final nights of the camp. And this way of mobilizing people allowed them to not be evicted for another day. While the camp was operational, it was basically a mutual aid space. People were, offering teach-ins, sharing dance and poetry, teaching about the connections between South Africa and Palestine, teaching about indigeneity in Palestine, and just forming new communities and connections in a university space that is deeply competitive, individualistic, and isolating. Numerous students of color told me personally that they felt a stronger sense of community in the camp than they had ever felt at any other time in their years on this campus. And I think it's important to just note as well that the demands of this encampment in particular were that Columbia, again, divest from Israeli apartheid, genocide, and occupation. And they were also demanding total financial transparency of the university's investment, because as it stands right now, only 0.66% of Columbia's investments are actually publicly available. The rest are completely unknown to us. We suspect it could be even more sinister than we've already been able to ascertain. Researchers in these organizations and other graduate students have compiled a list of Columbia's investments that we know about, including Caterpillar, Boeing, General Dynamics, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, some of these types of corporations that benefit from violence and occupation. So the camp also, in addition to being a gathering place for large numbers of students to come together, learn together, and share space, it also became a point of contention. There were a number of far-right actors from sort of militant groups like the Proud Boys, also some U.S. senators and representatives that came here to engage in various forms of political theater aimed at provoking members in the camp and trying to get sound bites to feed their narrative that this was somehow an anti-Semitic project. So eventually, the campus, I should also note, for those who have not been to Columbia, we are in the middle of Manhattan. It's a all the way around, there are gates and walls. So shortly after the camp went up, access to campus was restricted to people with university IDs. There were police and public safety at every entrance and exit. They eventually shut it down to where there were only, right now, there's only one way in or out of campus, and it's heavily guarded and armed and militarized. And at this moment, no one except for those who live in the dorms physically on campus is even allowed to be on campus. So that, these closures have been significant. And, I think many folks understand that this is a tactic for them to kind of prevent people from gathering, to prevent people from organizing, and so on. So when these closures first began to happen, while the camp was still up on the lawn in front of our main library, a group of students elected to deoccupy a place called Hamilton Hall. They renamed it Hind Hall after the 6-year-old little girl who was murdered by the IOF in Gaza. And they held that space for just under 24 hours before the full weight of the strategic response group of the NYPD, noted for suppressing social movements and in a very brutal way, was unleashed on our students. They blocked off the entire neighborhood for about 10 blocks in all directions. Many people who live near campus, like myself, were unable to get home because of these barricades. So those closures remain to this day. There are barricades all up and down our university area. And again, no one can get onto campus except for those who physically live in the dorms, including faculty, including PhD students, including undergrads who are still expected to somehow complete their finals in the midst of all of this. Very reminiscent of what we've seen in terms of checkpoints and so on in occupied Palestine, and and I think it's just important to note that these time, place, and manner restrictions was something that I learned about while I was a student in San Francisco State in 2015 and 2016 in the College of Ethnic Studies, where at that time the General Union of Palestine Students, or GUPS, was facing similar types of restrictions on their protest actions and so on. So, it seems like the administrative playbook doesn't change a great deal from moment to moment. And I think now, folks are trying to regroup, thinking about commencement, which on our university was scheduled for May 15th, Nakba Day. So there's been a call to organize, and we're kind of in the process of thinking about what that would look like for this next little bit here. I'll just say that, this week, many of the students involved in the camp are facing disciplinary hearings, suspension and expulsion. Some people who have been brought up on these charges were not arrested, were not in the camp at the time that the statements were issued, the notices were given. They've been really kind of indiscriminately suspending people since the camp went up, including a couple of students at Barnard, which is our college across the street, who were evicted from their dorms on 15 minutes notice for participating in, exercising their First Amendment rights to protest and to assemble on their campus. And were it not for the goodwill and the support of local community members and faculty, those people would be effectively unhoused in New York City and without access to food or medical care. So the university is really taking a really very heavy-handed approach here, both to our undergrads and our graduate students. And we are committed to, again, getting them to divest from occupation and genocide, financial transparency, getting amnesty for our students and our faculty who've been disciplined in conjunction with this, and also to get the NYPD off of our campus. The university has said that they're going to that they will retain a police presence on campus through at least May 17th, possibly longer. So we understand that no one can live and work in peace and safety when violent police presence is present on our campuses. So I'll just pause there. I feel like I've been talking for a moment, but I can always say more if you need.
Thank you, Nanea. I'm really happy because we're having actually this conversation where even though not many of us have known each other, and it looks like everybody's continuing each other's sentence, and because we've been in this struggle with each other and sharing it. And I actually wanted to just raise one issue around the whole question of the university presidents, a couple of issues. One is that a few days ago was the anniversary of the Columbia University. 700 students were arrested back in the late 60s And 2 days ago was the 56th anniversary of the murder, the martyrdom of 4 students at Kent State. And so, but there is something about kind of like it took a little bit, it escalated incrementally. Today, it's escalating very fast. And I think part of it has to do with the fact that there is the pro-Zionist groups, the pro-Israel groups are also already mobilized, and they have been targeting us left and right. The more their support for Palestine in the U.S. Streets, because Israel thinks that this is, the Zionists thinks that this is their area, and it is. It's the belly of the beast, and how dare we kind of like challenge that? And secondly, because also the repressive neoliberal white supremacist racist forces and violent forces are very much out, already organized out around. Also, they had rehearsed this. They've already been doing it again and again, and they're looking at it. And so when people think that this is really horrible, I think it's also really important to remember what happened with the COINTELPRO program, the counterintelligence, the assassination of 21,000 Black Panther members, the same way what happened with the Palestinian intellectuals. But I was also really shocked by the testimonies by university presidents, specifically Penn, it was Harvard, and Penn, Harvard, and I think Columbia said no, but then Shafiq went and testified last week, which she even made it worse than it is, which also shows that universities are not always places to learn. I mean, some people learn, some people don't learn, and some people learn the wrong lessons. And I was really shocked by the ways in which university presidents, one is actually they really don't know, and they are completely out of touch with their students. Secondly, that they are so acting as heads of corporations. They are not really university presidents. They have nothing to do with education. They are acting as the heads of corporations, protecting the interests of the corporations. We know what happened with Harvard, that the donors outright, quote-unquote donor-driven contributions, which is supposed to be unconditional, but it was donor-driven contributions saying, this is what's going on, this is what we want. We want you to dox the students. We want you to release the names of the students who said so and so. We want you to punish them. We want you to expel them. And sure enough, this is what the universities have been doing. They didn't do it right away, but they have done it. And also the ways in which university presidents come out and actually, although they should know better, that there is a whole huge number of people, rising number of Jewish anti-Zionist groups who are actually speaking out, and not from today, from before even Zionism, started, like in 1897, and continuing with the Bund, with the people who survived the Holocaust, with the people who have been through McCarthyism, with the people who've been supporting Palestine, and continue to do so day in and day out, including many of the students, and actually like move over than 50% of younger Jewish people in the United States are actually in support of Palestine, don't want Israel to speak in their name. They keep saying, we want to protect our Jewish students. We want to protect Jewish students. We want to create safe environment for Jewish students. And it's very interesting because they claim to be anti-Semitism, but they actually lump all Jews together. They say all the Jews are the same. All the Jews are Zionists. All the Jews are pro-Israel. So this is kind of like really, really problematic. And so we wanted to actually, and so this is what the university presidents say, and this is what has been happening to us, and this is what Professor Kinakawa will speak about. But I would like us to, if we are able to see the video now, if we can show it, and then we go to Dr. Kinakawa, and then we will come back to everybody else. So go ahead. I think Hadir is going to show it. Go ahead.
I'll try to show it first. If it doesn't work this time, then Hadir will try. All right, so let's fingers crossed. Let's see if it comes on this time. Sharing my screen. Okay.
What's happening on America's college campuses?
We're good.
Anti-Semitic mobs have taken over leading universities.
I'm Zach. I'm a Jewish student at the University of Michigan, and we're camping here on the Diag until the university divests from Israel. None of us is free until all of us are free.
They call for the annihilation of Israel.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joe. I'm a member of Jews for Ceasefire Now. We call on the university to end their ongoing repression of student protesters advocating for a liberated Palestine.
They attack Jewish students.
I have never felt more proud to be Jewish
and more in line with the values of my faith than when I was being taken out of Columbia's lawns with my hands zip-tied behind my back, alongside 107 other students, risking safety and suspension in order to push our university to divest from genocide, apartheid, and occupation in Palestine.
They attacked Jewish faculty. This is reminiscent of what happened in German universities in the 1930s. It's unconscionable. It has to be stopped. It has to be condemned and condemned unequivocally. But that's not what happened. It has to be done not only because they attack Israel, that's bad enough. Not only because they want to kill Jews wherever they are, that's bad enough. It's also, when you listen to them, it's also because they say not only death to Israel, death to the Jews, but death to America. And this tells us that there's an anti-Semitic surge here that has terrible consequences.
No, Mr. Netanyahu, it is not anti-Semitic or pro-Hamas to point out that in a little over 6 months, your extremist government has killed 34,000 Palestinians and wounded more than 78,000, 70% of whom are women and children. Do not insult the intelligence of the American people by attempting to distract us from the immoral and illegal war policies of your extremist and racist government. Do not use anti-Semitism to deflect attention from the criminal indictment you are facing in the Israeli courts. It is not anti-Semitic to hold you accountable for your actions.
Thank you, Lean, for showing this. I would just want to say a couple of comments. One is, as you realize, this is just a slice of the opposition of anti-Zionist, our anti-Zionist comrades and siblings to speak about that. There is so much more. So we want to make sure that actually everybody, including our students, do not understand this as the only thing. This is just one example. Two is that if you go to the Ahmed Studies YouTube page, if you go to the page of the Palestine Arab Muslim Caucus of the California Faculty Association and many other pages, you will see many discussions and many writings of many of anti-Zionist Jewish scholars, students, and activists who are speaking up and analyzing and talking about what it is exactly, and actually saying that this is fascism, this is genocide. Do not try to hide behind what's going on. So so this is something that just a sample to just remind people of what's happening. And I'm going to turn the floor now to Dr. Kinakawa to speak about what's happening with what happened with the arbitration last week. There are certain things we can talk about. There are certain things we're not going to be able to talk about, but you will know that when we are able to win and release that. So go ahead, Dr. Kinakawa.
Yes, thank you. So before I talk about arbitration, I just want to follow up on your conversation earlier. And so like San Francisco State University, as like many other universities, has been what Dr. Abshita called the genocidal iceberg, and Dr. Abdul Hadi and Naria, and also Dr. Shahada, who's been working for Ahmed for a long time, all of you have been warning to the campus that, like there has been a Zionist siege on the campus, and like it's information, like, that the iceberg has been forming for decades. And then Ahmed has been really the target as the most radical and innovative departments on campus, but then I think there has been and then so that's like the Zionist siege is not just on the high administration, but also even like a College of Ethnic Studies administration, that it's all like there has been a takeover. And I think it's important that in the context, like there has been a lot of silence, right? And while like those of you who are here have been warning and alerting to the campus, like there has been a neoliberal silence that kind of gaslight and to refuse to confront with the Zionists on campus. And I'm just thinking that what Dr. Mehari said about, now it is, citing Cesar, that, this is a time when people are no longer not deceived, and students are saying on our campus that we are no longer deceived. But I still see that among our colleagues that they still don't, to kind of hold on to the neoliberal silence, and just kind of misread the current situation and misread what our administration is like how Zionism is really deeply into our administration. And I think that's very dangerous. I see that those colleagues who still refuse to see, and kind of I know that there's going to be a meeting between the President Mahoney and the encampment today, and I worry because if those faculty members who refuse to see that Zionism, if you refuse to hear Dr. Abdul Hadi and others who have been warning, if they are in the conversation, I think they'll fail the students who are actually refusing to be not deceived. And so I just want to say that, and that's also part of the genocidal iceberg. And so in terms of arbitration, I think that's kind of part of the whole attack on Ahmed that's it's been going on over decades. And so there's been, Dr. Abdul Hadi, I'm sure will talk about this more, but to dismantle Ahmed and as a kind of radical space where Dr. Abdul Hadi has been centralizing the indivisibility of justice and connecting all our struggles, core struggles, and in relation, while centering Palestine and Arab Muslim communities. And so the Ahmed has been, there has been attempts to dismantle Ahmed and also put Ahmed under race and resistance departments so that Ahmed would lose self-determination, and to try to kind of get rid of Dr. Abdul Hadi so that they can actually control and take over the Ahmed, so that actually they could avoid confronting Zionists on our campus who are private donors and who are controlling lots of programs. And so the canceling of the Palestine course this summer, that is one of the things that they have done, by refusing to let Dr. Abdul Hadi offer those amazing Ahmed courses again and again, but using very much administrative kind of language, just kind of using the pretext that it's administrative issues, and and try to kind of victim blaming, and it's the Ahmed's fault, the etc. etc. And so our arbitration, I think one of the things that I felt strong, so just very briefly what happened, so our online open classroom, Foods, Narratives, Gender Justice and Resistance conversation with Leila Khaled that was scheduled on September 23rd, 2020, was shut down by Zionist organizations and corporate media such as Zoom, Facebook, YouTube, and then SFSU and CSU administration colluded with them. And both Dr. Abdul Hadi and I filed the grievances against CSU for their role in silencing and shutting down our open classroom. And then the randomly selected faculty hearing committees ruled unanimously in favor of both of our grievances, and stated that CSU administration violated our academic freedom, and they let the outside organizations, that is Zionist organizations, censor the content of our classes. However, the President Mahoney rejected the committee's decision, and that forced us to take the case to arbitration. And last week we had the arbitration hearing, and I think that details of the case have to be discussed by our lawyers, amazing lawyers. But I think one this is my summary, and as a layperson, but part of what became very clear during the arbitration hearing is that the CSU administration allowed the Zoom that was colluding with Zionist organizations such as Lawfare Project to shut down our open classroom based on the false and baseless accusation of material support of terrorism. And although CSU claims that they are champion of academic freedom, they maintained that they disagree with Zoom's legal assessment of our, CSU said they are champion of academic freedom, and they actually disagree with Zoom, and they said our classroom is okay to go, and pretended that they are actually supporting us, but they actually let the Zoom shut down our class, and they didn't actually hold on to their own legal assessments. That clearly, they clearly knew that the accusation of material support of terrorism was far-fetched, but they didn't tell us on that. But they, on the contrary, they actually threatened us by saying that we could be imprisoned because of that. But they didn't support us, and they just told us that we need to look for our own legal support, and and they just really completely abandoned us. And at the same time, the administration insinuated that our class is glorifying terrorism, and while repeating Zionist Islamophobic mischaracterization of our open classroom, and then they also President Mahoney publicly kind of mixed up between anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism as well. And then CSU administration, also through the Division of Equity and Campus Inclusion and so forth, they co-sponsored a counter event which criminalized and demonized our open classroom that was organized by Hireo, Anti-Defamation League, and many other Zionist organizations such as JCRC and so forth, and also Israel Council. And then the father made an official partnership with Hireo and Academic Engagement Network, and published SFSU Jewish Campus Climate Assessment Report, which based on very questionable so-called research, they raised their concerns over safety of Zionist students on campus, ignoring anti-Zionist Jewish students or any other students. And then in that, they singled out Dr. Abdul Hadi Ahmed and also our open classroom as producing anti-Semitic incidents on our campus and so forth. And just one last thing is during the hearing, it was very it was a traumatizing experience for both Dr. Abdul Hadi and myself, because they were kind of reproducing the violence all over again, and they didn't hide it this time by kind of using the attorney who really spoke as Zionists and tried to actually for example, through the cross-examination of me, she asked a question in which she tried to make me say the Zionist words. She tried to put the Zionist language into my mouth. And so I had to decide whether I don't answer the question or I have to kind of jeopardize my credibility as a witness. And that's one example. But they kind of created as a spectacle in which they tried to sway the arbitrator, the Zionist version of the characterization of our open classroom, and then tried to normalize Islamophobia and the Palestine racism as though that's and then just kind of made the impression that university was doing their best under the circumstances and so forth. And then, but the universities didn't even hide to show their contradictions, and they have no chance winning this case. Like if you hear their statements, but I just wanted to say that it's they use the arbitration to kind of, like continue. I mean, like it's interesting ways in which they kind of control the narratives. They try to control the narratives, and like try to suppress the very narratives that we try to centralize in our open classrooms. Like we wanted to talk about the anti-colonial, decolonial feminism, and we wanted to have the conversation free from Zionist mischaracterization and violent takeover of the whole, for example, Leila Khaled's life and work and so forth. But the administration really kind of used the opportunity to reverse, attempted to reverse that. And so, I guess I will stop and let Dr. Abdrahadi continue.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kinakawa. Actually, I don't have much to add. I just wanted to basically highlight three things. One is that Dr. Mahoney, President Mahoney today is going to go meet with the encampment on campus, and we and many of us do not believe that this to be aside from public relations ploy. The reason for that is because this is what Dr. Mahoney did in the arbitration. As Dr. Kinakawa said, she published multiple statements that are pro-Zionist. She actually published a statement to campus where she said she's against Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and anti-blackness. But then when she published the same statement in the newsletter of the Jewish Community Relations Council, one of the folks who are basically attacking us, she removed Islamophobia and anti-blackness and only left anti-Semitism. And she was congratulated by the head of the fundraising for the Jewish Foundation of San Francisco on Twitter. Then Dr. Kinakawa mentioned that they did the rally with Hillel, in which the Israeli government participated. The Consulate of the State of Israel participated with the university at the same time as we were silenced. So she does this all the time. She did it on the arbitration, smiling and all of it. I support academic freedom, and we keep saying that put your money where your mouth is. We believe deeds, we don't want words. And this is the same thing as universities who have been repressing Palestinians have been saying all around. The second thing is that, and I also agree with Dr. Kinakawa, is that and this is part of the Zionist tactics, is to remove the whole content of what we were trying to do. Our event was called Whose Narratives? Gender, Justice, and Resistance, a conversation with Leila Khaled. They tried to shift the whole purpose of it to focus on terrorism, to scare us in order for us to spend 2-3 months trying to actually show that we are not engaged in anything illegal, we won't be thrown in prison, but to also take away the discussion of the content it is, and also smear Leila Khaled again, instead of being somebody who's also part of the Palestinian movement, somebody who's been organizing with the women's movement, have been doing all of this stuff and so on, to kind of like make sure that she does not appear on the screen so people can actually relate to her face to face as a grandmother, as somebody who actually has her ideas. Or she's not negating that she's a militant, she's not negating what she does, her content, her politics and so on, but they were preventing her from coming into the classroom. And the third thing is that this was one of the things that I think people at public universities, maybe also private universities, will appreciate, that what we were trying to do is, in the midst of pandemic, we were trying to bring into our classrooms luminaries that students never ever get a chance to get. I mean, even private universities have to pay thousands and thousands of dollars to be able to confirm speakers. Here we are, bring 5 amazing international luminaries from South Africa, from Black Liberation Movement, from anti-Zion Jewish queer organizing, from Birzeit University, Leila Khaled. This is what we were trying to bring them all together and have this amazing conversation that we set up for our students. And they deprived our students the possibility of having such an amazing, engaging space to escape this nastiness of the COVID, of the pandemic, of the fact that they're losing loved ones, of the fact that they're unable to pay their tuition, of that they lost their jobs and so on, and the fact that we're offering it at a public university at a great laws and labor and so on. So basically it was all erased. And they are now trying to say, oh, we're for academic freedom. The same thing that they are doing today now. And they're trying to also kind of like twist it around and say, oh, there is nothing about the cancellation of the Palestine course in the midst of the pandemic. It's in the midst of the genocide in Gaza. It's just about rescheduling classes. And it's only about shifting faculty around and so on. And we say, like, how is it that only the Palestine course is being targeted? What is it when all the students want to learn about Palestine? So this is one of the things that we are actually asking people to support. I'm going to stop because we'd like to hear from other people. We have an amazing video from Dr. Hafi from Gaza that Sundus has kindly shared with us. So we were going to play it now. He spoke in Arabic, and Bir Zaid has translated it. So please listen to that. And then we have another video, and then we are actually going to be speaking with each other when we have a fourth video. So go ahead. No sound again. Maybe if you want to figure out the sound, put in the children from Gaza, because that's ready, and then we can get that.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'll try again to present Dr. Hafi's video. 1 second.
من غزة الكبرياء والتحدي نبرق بالتحية والتقدير لأحرار العالم ومواقفهم المشرفة التي تناصر شعبنا الفلسطيني، ونخص بالذكر حراك الجامعات الأمريكية وجموع الشباب المستنير الرافض لرواية الظلم والطغيان والمطالب بوقف الإجرام الإسرائيلي بحق شعبنا وشبابه ومؤسساته. لقد طالت حرب الإبادة الإسرائيلية على غزة كل مكونات الحياة، فضربت البنى التحتية الأساسية في القطاع، وأصبحت رحلة النزوح من مكان لآخر بحثاً عن الأمان رحلة مضنية محفوفة بالمخاطر في ظل أوضاع تراجيدية طالت بالضرورة قطاع التعليم العالي الذي يضم حوالي 90,000 طالب وطالبة. تعرضت المؤسسات الأكاديمية والبحثية لاستهداف وتدمير ممنهج، فقد دمر الاحتلال الإسرائيلي 31 مبنى جامعيا بشكل كلي، بالإضافة لمقرات لمراكز بحثية ومكتبات تاريخية مثل مركز رشاد الشو الثقافي ومركز التخطيط الفلسطيني الذي أعمل فيه. كما تشرد الطلاب وعائلاتهم من بيوتهم وأصبحوا نازحين، وأصبح مستقبلهم التعليمي في مهب الريح. فقد استشهد أكثر من 500 طالب جامعي وحوالي 100 من الكوادر الأكاديمية. من ناحية أخرى قامت عدة جامعات وطنية مشكورة بفتح برامج استضافة لطلبة القطاع كطالب زائر، لكن هناك تحدي حقيقي في قدرة الطلبة على الاتصال بالإنترنت والدخول لمنصات التعليم. لقد حركت الحرب وويلاتها الضمير العالمي وأثرت في الوعي الحر، فطلاب وأساتذة الجامعات هم أصحاب الرأي الحقيقي المبني على مواقف أخلاقية أدخلتها في صراع مع أباطرة السلطة والمال، ما يوضح مساحة المشاركة السياسية الحقيقية المتروكة للشباب عموما في النظام الأمريكي. كما نحيي من هنا فيكم روح التضامن الإنساني مع فلسطين وشعبها ضد البطش والعنصرية الإسرائيلية المدعومة أمريكيا، وعليه تبرز أيضا حقيقة الديمقراطية الأمريكية الصورية، كما ندعم حق الشباب في تصويب سياسة بلادهم الخارجية. وأخيرا فإن وقف التعليم في غزة سيخلق بيئة خصبة للفوضى والتطرف والعنف الذي سيشكل الشباب وقوده، وعليه نطالب بشكل عاجل طرح الموضوع لمناقشته في مجلس الأمن الدولي في إطار القرار 2250 بشأن الشباب والسلم والأمن وتفعيل دور الشباب في معالجة آثار الحرب، وذلك بالتنسيق مع المؤسسات الدولية الرسمية والأهلية مثل اليونسكو ووزارات التعليم العالي في البلدان الصديقة لمناقشة موضوع مستقبل التعليم في غزة. ومن هنا نؤكد دعمنا وتقديرنا لحراك الطلبة في الجامعات الأمريكية ولمبادرة الجامعة الشعبية لغزة كمنارة ثقافية ومنبر سياسي للشباب الباحث عن الحقيقة. فالحرب تهدم البيوت لكنها لا تهزم العقول. وأشكر لكم حسن استماعكم.
We are so grateful to Dr. Hafi for being able to record this message, and we are so grateful to Sundus Hamad and the Right to Education campaign at Birzeit University for being able to collect this message and get it to us. It's very difficult for people to join us from Gaza by video, especially at this time because electricity gets cut off. That's for whenever there is electricity. The internet gets cut off. So this is the only way we are able to do it. But before we go to the next video, I just wanted to again say that this is a video that has been compiled by the International Commission to Support Palestinian People's Rights, and specifically by our colleague Salah Abdel Mati. I wanted to also say a couple of things that I think really our audience will be very interested in. People from Gaza and people from other parts of Palestine actually responded. San Francisco State University encampment has asked for food, for meals to feed the students who are in encampment. And people in Gaza and people in Palestinian, others throughout Palestine, decided to donate some money to feed the students who are in solidarity with them. So money is coming to the students at San Francisco State from the starving people in Palestine, saying that we are with you, we support you, we would like to feed you. And if you were coming to Palestine and we were hosting you in our homes, we will share whatever food we have with you. As we know, people who go visit Palestine always are treated. One of my colleagues, when I mentioned that to them, they said, well, we shouldn't be accepting something from Gaza because they don't have it. And I said, actually, they will be insulted. If you don't accept it, you should accept it, and you will be able to pay in kind, and you will be able to support. And this is just a token of appreciation and support, and shows how deep and how material, not only mental and emotional and symbolic the solidarity is. So next we have a very short video from kids in Gaza that was created for us. So we will be showing it. Next, Lean Plug, please go ahead.
Yes. Okay, let's see the sound.
موطني الجلال والجمال والسناء والبهاء في رواك والحياة والنجاة والهناء والرجاء في هواك هل أراك سالما منعما وغانما مكرما سالما منعما وغانما مكرما تبلغ السماء
Thank you so much, Lean. This is we wanted to show this because for many reasons. One is to show that Palestinians and people around the world are aware of each other's struggles. They are aware, they are familiar, despite the shutdown of social media platform, despite the repression, despite the killing, despite the murder and the genocide that's going on around the world. People are aware, are in solidarity with each other. We also wanted to show this because, this is an open classroom. And in an open classroom, as we all know, we are all educators, we always use multiple ways, multiple tools. We show videos, we show documentaries, we assign poems, we read novels, we do analysis, we do all sorts of things for us to be able to kind of like convey what's going on. We ask our students to comment. Sometimes they like, sometimes they don't like. There is all sorts of ways. Pedagogically, that's why the project is called Teaching Palestine, Pedagogical Praxis and the Indivisibility of Justice, which we are really, really proud to have started with Birzeit University. And Dr. Maari was one of our counterparts working with us, and with Al-Najah National University in Palestine. We visited throughout Palestine, and we went again. Then we did that along with the universities in South Africa and with community groups in South Africa. We went to Cuba, to Havana. We went all over the world as much as we were able to. I mean, we don't have a whole lot of money, so we try to go wherever we are. But this is what we think about. How do we teach? We teach inside and outside of the classroom. We teach in the prison, on the street, in the encampment. We saw students at Columbia University doing their homework. We saw people coming to speak. I mean, if I won't stop about it, but I just wanted to say this is one of the things that we are trying to do. Also, we have a lot of things that are coming up that we will continue. There's so many in campus. We want to bring students to speak. We want to be able to get the voices of people who are actually in solidarity with Palestine to Palestinians. So Palestinians also know that they're not standing alone, that there is an international solidarity movement that is going to stop the genocide, that's going to stop and that's going to dismantle the settler colonial regime. And so there is more. Please wait. Please check out what's going on. Please post comments. And now we're going to show one last video from students in Arab universities who have been involved in encampments, and then spend the rest of the time hearing from our guests about your comments, your reflections. We never end, but this is what we're going to do. So let's go ahead to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So the videos are separated. We have an entry from Egypt, from Lebanon, and from Tunisia. We're going to start with Walid from Egypt, from the American University of Cairo.
Hi, I'm Walid in Egypt at the American University in Cairo, where we've been showing up physically and digitally to make our university boycott. The challenges we face here have to do with how difficult it is to mobilize in Egypt in general, but also because we're working with an American administration that never prioritizes the human, never prioritizes ethics. What motivates us is that we're able to create a space for ourselves and each other to mobilize, to call for demands, and to work towards them. We're also motivated by our conviction that the occupation of Palestine is the most blatant case of colonialism that we see today, and it is backed by the Western world leaders. So now more than ever, what I want to tell all student organizers is that this is a global movement. We're in this together, and we will continue until liberation.
So now I'll show Lebanon from the American University of Beirut, which happens to be my alma mater. So share my screen.
Peace be upon the people of Gaza. Peace be upon the people in all of Palestine. Peace be upon the people of South Lebanon. Peace be upon everyone who is standing in solidarity with us, starting from students who are being directly targeted by the forces who have been trained side by side with the Israeli occupation forces. We see their efforts and we appreciate their solidarity, and we saw their calls, and we are moving from our own campuses in Lebanon, in the American University. Lebanon has a long history of Zionist occupation, and Lebanon is still being bombarded by the Zionist forces. All student movements now are very important in shaping the new world that we are paving for ourselves. The new world that is going to be filled with freedom, with people who are not afraid. Our threat is not our university. Our threat is not the police. Our threat is the occupation that operates through all of them.
And we have the Tunisian video. I will wait until it loads so we can have a round of discussion and get back to it.
Okay, thank you, Lian. So as we wait for and I just want to point out, these are two private universities. So if people think that also students at private universities are also doomed to reproduce the system, that's not true. We know that from various universities. So I'm going to actually call on our guests to actually start like maybe commenting, because we're winding towards the end. So we will start with Cloudy Sky. You're the undergrad, so go ahead, and then we will go to to Nanea, and then to Mahdar and to Dr. Mahari. Go ahead.
Yeah, we can talk about like what's our next steps are, like without sharing any like sensitive information, if that's what you would like. I think just as we're going forward, we're just gonna keep planning on holding our teach-ins. We're gonna just hold strong on the encampment, which is the main thing that we're trying to do, just have visibility for Palestine and our struggle for divestment from the university. That's the main thing. Just keep in talks with admin to try to get our demands met, to get our SJP formed. Yeah, our plans are just to keep all of our people safe. We're in touch with like lawyers and all of those things that we would need if they were to apply like pressure or violence or threaten us with charges or any of that sort. So yeah, I think we're just trying to stay here as long as possible and see how admin responds and what they're going to do as commencement approaches.
Thank you, Claudiska. Thank you for joining us. And Nanea?
Yeah, just really briefly, and thank you all again. I just wanted to add that universities like Columbia and San Francisco State and others market themselves as spaces where free inquiry and intellectual discussion, and also radical movements like those of the 1960s can take place. I think in this moment, it's really important that we expose in as many arenas as possible the fact that their actions right now do not align with that marketing strategy, expose the corporate university for what it is. And I'll also just note that while these raids have taken place on Columbia's campus, they have also blocked medics and student journalists from, or any kind of journalists, but in particular student journalists, from reporting on what was happening. They locked them in a building. And for me, this just expresses the fact that the university itself and their donors and trustees are terrified of people knowing what they're doing, knowing about their complicity. And for that reason, it is critical that we continue to fight and continue the struggle to teach Palestine, to teach the interconnectedness of all of our struggles. And for those, especially, younger students, undergrads who are still in encampments right now, please remember that this is a very long struggle. You stand on the shoulders of very powerful, dedicated people like some of the folks on this call. Please don't be discouraged. As the repression weighs in, know that you are in really good company and that you have justice on your side.
Thank you, Nanea. How about Mahdar?
I don't think there's much to add. I just want to kind of echo Dr. Mari and like this kind of radical freedom conception. What we're trying to do right now is really build the consciousness of all of us as students and as a collective and as people with aligned values to really think through what the future looks like and how we're gonna. So I'm assuming this is what's happening across encampments. And so, long live Palestine. We're here for the Palestinian liberation, and we're gonna stand until we see these systems and structures bow down to our demands. And so I'm very grateful that you guys had us here today, and very grateful for all the people from Gaza, thanking us, because we want to also thank them for bringing this consciousness to the world, because it really is overdue. And thank you.
Thank you, Mahdar. We're going to ask the excuse of the audience to give us a couple more minutes, because we would like to hear from each of our speakers. We are going to show the video from Tunisia, and then we will hear from Dr. Maari, and we're going to hear from Hadil and from Sundus before we close. So go ahead, Ian.
I'm going to present Shadi, who's a law student from Tunis. And he's going to talk a little bit about the Tunisian Student Union, which is an excellent example of Arab students organizing. They actually have their own encampment, and he'll talk about it more.
عضو لجنة وطنية لإعداد مؤتمر الاتحاد العام لطلبة تونس، أول تنظيم طلابي في العالم العربي اللي تأسس في أوائل الخمسينيات القرن الماضي. ما يحفزنا على تنظيم تحركات المساندة لفلسطين هو تاريخنا النضالي في مقاومة المستعمر الفرنسي ومساندة حركات التحرر الوطني في تونس. التاريخ اللي صار فيه انتفاضة طلابية في تونس لافتكاك استقلالية الاتحاد من الدولة الدكتاتورية. منذ 7 أكتوبر قمنا بالعديد من التحركات والدعوات مطالبة بوقف العدوان على قطاع غزة، من بينها التحرك اليوم الموالي لقصف المستشفى المعمداني اللي ضم آلاف من الطلبة والطالبات للتظاهر قدام سفارات الدول المساندة للكيان الصهيوني، باعتبار أن تونس ما فيهاش سفارة للكيان الصهيوني ولا تعترف به كدولة إنسانية. مساندة اعتصام معهد الصحافة وعلوم الإخبار اللي تم فيه نصب مخيم باسم الشهيدة الصحفية شيرين أبو عاقلة بمطالبة إدارة الكلية بمراجعة اتفاقيتها وإنهاء العلاقات مع المؤسسات المالية اللي عندها علاقة بالكيان الصهيوني. وقمنا في نفس الوقت بمراسلة العديد من الكليات والمعاهد لمراجعة شراكتها مع جميع المؤسسات اللي عندها معها شراكة. الأخير حبيت نقول لجميع الطلبة والطالبات عاشت نضالاتكم لتستمروا في الضغط لطلب وقف العدوان على قطاع غزة، وليعلموا أن هذا الجيل اختار أن يقف على الجانب الصحيح من التاريخ. وعاشت كل حركات التحرر الوطني في العالم، وعاشت جميع الشعوب المضطهدة والمقموعة تحت طغيان الإمبريالية في العالم، وعاشت فلسطين من شمالها إلى جنوبها، من نهرها إلى بحرها، بعاصمتها القدس الشريف.
Thank you. I think it makes perfect sense to actually have the last student speak from Tunisia and to make the statement that he made. I'm going to go next to Dr. Maari.
Sorry. Okay. Thank you first for organizing this very informing event. I want to end by praising the radical solidarity of the oppressed, and I want to affirm that this solidarity should engage with combating the intersections of oppressive capitalist, racist, settler colonial, and imperial structures as they play in local settings which compose the immediate arena of struggle, in which the material conditions are of exploitation and oppression are rooted, but simultaneously these national struggles had to be organized into an international movement. National liberation struggles should be at the heart of these movements, and I hope that Gaza and Palestine can plant the seeds for such emancipatory solidarity.
Thank you, Dr. Maari. I was wondering, Dr. Kinakawa, do you want to speak now or wait? Go ahead.
No, I just will have a deep gratitude to all the amazing panelists and also everyone. I mean, and everyone who worked behind the scenes as well. So thank you very much.
Hadil.
Thank you all for organizing and for sharing all of your experience. And I just want to say that being in a bubble in the United States, this whole student uprising movement have got us closer to the experience of Palestinian on the ground. And I think this is what's most powerful of it. We're not just seeing it far away, we're experiencing it ourselves. We're seeing it in our bodies, in our mental health. And this is whatever strived our Palestinian brothers and sisters to stand up for 75 years. Now this is exactly direct motivation for us to stand, not just empathy, but it's like a personal experience. And this is the most powerful thing I've been feeling with everything that's happening. Thank you all. Really appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Hadil, for joining. And I just want to point out that if you people notice, we have a very mixed group from various backgrounds, from various experiences, and everybody stands their own. I just wanted to say, by the way, Dr. Ghassan Abu Sitte got really, really tired and after his ordeal. So he said he will join us in the future. And he was very appreciative of the ability to speak at the beginning. Sundus.
So I just want to end with announcing that the student movement at Birzeit University and student of Birzeit University will start their own People's University tomorrow. And it's gonna be under the name of the Martyrs University for Gaza. It's a symbol for Birzeit University, which is called the Martyrs University, and it's going to be an extension to the People's University that is held in so many campuses around the world. And I want to share a quick a message from student movement at Birzeit, if you allow me. So. To our fellow free souls in the student movement in the US universities and around the world, in the midst of adversity, you stand with us, amplifying the silenced cries of innocent children and the marginalized voices of Gaza. We stand united, bolstered by the unwavering support you extend to us. Your belief in the values of humanity, freedom, and justice fuels our resilience. Today, as our people in Gaza face genocide, your solidarity sustains us. We want you to know that your support is our strength. Your voices are our echo, and your actions are our hope. Your advocacy, our beacon, and your actions a testament to the shared values of liberation and justice. From the depths of our hearts, we extend our deepest gratitude. Thank you for standing by our side, for keeping the flame of hope alive, and for inspiring us to persist in our pursuit for a free Palestine, for a world without oppression and without occupation. Together, our collective efforts know no bounds. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Sundus. This is really amazing. Of course, I'm very partial to Birzeit because I was a student at Birzeit, and I've been very much connected with the university and all Palestinian universities. I just want to end by again thanking all of our amazing speakers. I want to thank all the people behind the scenes. Lean, you've been amazing. Doing it bravely and making it happen. I want to thank Laith, who has been involved in it. I want to thank San Francisco State University students who designed the flyer. I want to thank all the organizers who some of them, Dr. Kinakawa mentioned, some actually came at the last minute, like Feminist Solidarity Network for Palestine, the Black Alliance, Democratic Socialists of America, Jewish Voice for Peace, and many others. Above all, I actually want to say our partnership with the National Students for Justice in Palestine, who have been actually coordinating behind the scene. These encampments are part of the struggle on the local and the international level together. These do not happen in a vacuum. They are part and parcel of cumulative work, of struggle of many years that have started, that will continue until victory is near and until the genocide has ended, until all our people are free. Thank you so much and good night.